All right, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing time so far. Our next panel is titled AI's Impact on the Customer Experience, Customer-Centric Everything. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the virtual stage. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name's Patrika. I'm here with AI4, and I'll be moderating today. So first, I would like to go around the virtual room and get some introductions so we can get to know you all. Liliana, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Patrika. My name is Liliana Lindberg, and I work as a customer engineer at Peltarion. I have been working at the company for the past 2 years, and in my role, what I do is I meet organizations and companies of different sizes that want to implement AI on their business. So my role is to guide them, to help them to find those use cases to produce benefits for the company.
Awesome. Thanks, Liliana. Next up, let's have Sanjiv introduce himself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sanjiv Karani. I lead up Kroger platform products and ecosystem innovation, which on an annual basis drive about $5 billion business impact to Kroger.
Excellent. Cal?
Hi there, everybody. My name is Al-Dhubaib. I'm a data scientist by training, and I started Pandata about 6 years ago to help organizations design and develop machine learning and AI-powered solution with an emphasis on trusted AI.
Awesome. Thanks, Cal. All right. And finally, we have Senthil.
Hello, everyone. My name is Senthil Padmanabhan. I am a Vice President Technical Fellow at eBay. I head the user experience engineering for all our platforms, iOS, Android, and the web. I've been with eBay for 10 years, and it's all about customer experience that I've been dealing with. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, we have an amazing group of panelists here today, so I think we should go ahead and get it kicked off with our first question. So our first question is a broad one, but we're going to get some interesting perspectives. So how has the customer experience been changing over the past 10 years, and which trends are unfolding? First, I'd like to toss this over to Sanjiv. We can get some interesting retail perspective from you there.
Yeah, and I will answer this slightly differently. At Kroger, our purpose is to feed the human spirit, and we think about key trends and changes purely from a customer experience perspective. Are we making it simpler, faster, and better for our customer? So at a fundamental level, are these changes helping or hindering us from positively impacting our customers' life? We truly believe in serving, delighting our customers on their terms. We use anything, anytime, anywhere as sort of the core mantra to guide that. For example, 2 years ago, we launched our public APIs and extended Kroger shoppability for our customers on hundreds of external food inspiration sites, including 7 of the top 10 recipe sites. As Gandhi said, be the change that you wish to see in the world. We are leading the change with breadth of innovation in e-commerce, automated warehouses, smart shelves, smart carts, data and analytics, autonomous vehicles, drone delivery, to just name the few. We are partnering with leading edge tech companies to bring these innovations to life for our customers at a rapid pace. Last year, we also broke into the top 10 US e-commerce players.
Wow, that's really exciting. Thanks for sharing. So actually, I'd love to get Senthil's perspective on this as well with the eBay digital background.
Yeah, sure. The way I look at it is like this, right? Customer expectations always evolve, customer experiences always evolve. Just to put it more at point, right? It has always been a linear evolution in the past few years, except the last 2 years, or like when the pandemic started, it has become a step function. It has really changed a lot of things in the world. It was mostly offline or like brick and mortar, and it was slowly becoming online. And then it was a sort of an online-offline fusion that we go. But the last 18 months or so, it has all become digitalized, right? Everything has become online. I think that's a step function that nobody anticipated. It is like having many years of future revolution happening within a short period of time. And that has created a lot of challenges in a very good way, especially for the players on digital platform, and like small businesses who never had a digital presence have to have a digital presence right now. That has become a forcing function here. To us, and what we observe is this: right? Like there are a set of customers or folks who never want to shop online. The pandemic had made them come to the digital world. The other aspect is also there are certain categories which people are not comfortable shopping online, maybe fashion or grocery and things like that. They always felt that will never become online because there is always this feel to it. I need to be to a store. I think those things have changed, and this means the whole logistics has changed. This means our whole back-end processing has to be changed. So we need to think about fashion in a different way. We need to think about grocery delivery in a different way. And all these have attributed to us in terms of how AI also evolves, because we have never thought in those angles. So we have to build our models, train our data accordingly, and also provide the right experience at the end of the day. So as I told, right, to summarize this, right, I think the changes have been linear. The last 2 years have been a step function.
Wow, that's a great analysis. Cal and Liliana, anything to add from the technical side?
Sure. I'd actually piggyback off of what Senthil just said and just talk about what's been enabling some of that exponential growth from a technology perspective. So up until 2 years ago, being able to build AI use cases on anything more than just hard numbers, we're talking text, we're talking images, video feeds, etc., that was completely inaccessible. And there's been an explosion of building blocks that data scientists now have access to build these sophisticated solutions that can take advantage of pictures of product, for example, and build AI solutions around fashion, or understand even one of the most fascinating use cases in the past few years is in Walmart using cameras at checkout lines to monitor frustration and be able to trigger interaction from a customer experience representative. And so these building blocks have only started coming out to the market recently outside of big tech, and that is changing the name of the game.
Yeah, actually, this that you have just mentioned, Cal, it is something that I wanted to point out. In the last couple of years, a year and a half ago, we did have some retails that were coming using the platform. Perhaps I didn't explain what Peltarion is, but Peltarion is an AI platform that lowers the complexity to use AI. And we have a lot of interactions with different companies. But it has been exploding the amount of customers that come, and actually in the fashion industry, since it has been kind of like you have to be in the store to try, you have to try sizes, you have to be present in order to make a shop. And I can say I was one of them. I never shop online clothes, but when you get exposed or you get forced to change your habit, your way of shopping, or your way to how you acquire goods from a physical perspective to an online perspective, you just need to adapt. So right now we are actually working with 3 different companies that are in the fashion industry in different AI cases that are actually in response to that big demand of shoppers online. So that is definitely some of the positive things that you see came from the pandemic.
Wow, that's awesome. Very exciting stuff. And this is a very exciting time for customer experience. So let's actually jump into our next question. How exactly does AI enhance the consumer experience in retail? And we'd love to hear your examples. So I know we have a couple of retail represented here. So Senthil, why don't you take this one first?
Sure. In terms of retail experience, a lot of people think about the buying side of the story, where a buyer comes and purchases things, and like how they use image to recognize things, and how they do a checkout card, like the whole 9 yards. But at eBay, I think the other side of the equation, which is the selling side, is also equally important. And that's usually sort of ignored in a lot of ways when you talk about consumer experience. So eBay is a double-sided marketplace, right? So for us, our sellers are equally important. In fact, if our sellers are happy, we are happy. I mean, we all work for our sellers in some way or the other. So we wanted to make sure that our selling experience also is very well enhanced with this, with AI. Right, it involves a lot of things that people usually ignore, right from them, like taking an image and we filling up the listing information, to just price guidance, and that's a very important factor in this world where there is so many options for folks to shop, just not within eBay. I mean, eBay is an open marketplace, so they have to compete within, not only within eBay, but also in the general industry market as such, and from that to condition grading, and there are so many things which has rapidly evolved in the last couple of years. So I would say that selling side has been mostly our focus. And at eBay, the examples that you pointed out are these couple of things that I mentioned, that we have put a lot of investment to make sure that we give the right pricing guidance to our sellers. It's very competitive, and additionally conditional grading, because a lot of times sellers are not very confused whether it's new, it's like new, whether it's used, pre-owned, or whatever, right? But AI can do, like with a lot of data that we have in our platform, we can also train these models so that that image can clearly say, okay, this book, this condition is used, or it's you, or like new, or whatever. Because humans are very subjective in these things, because we have a bias towards what we own, and we either overstate these things, and then that ends up in a buyer frustration at the end of the day. So ultimately what we found out is, if you provide a very good selling experience using machine learning, using things that can be solved as an objective level, it also indirectly improves our buying side of the story. So it's actually everything, it works at the favor of the buyers. So I would always, so my examples would be towards selling as I outlined here.
Yeah. Oh. And Liliana, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yes, I would like to complement that list that Senthil has mentioned. For example, things that we have been working with our customers in the space has been recommender systems. And within recommender system, you could have so many different variability or different kinds of recommender systems. But ones that we have been working a lot lately is actually offering similar products when the item that the shopper is finding or wants to buy is out of stock, sold out, or they don't have it anymore. So they can pull up a different item that is very similar to the one that the buyer was looking for. That one, this recommended system, I remember from one specific case, they were generating that the order value was, it was increasing, because you avoid that person that wants to buy the specific item that is out of stock but is leaving. But when you offer a similar product or an alternative to the one that they are looking for, then you retain that shopper and you make the sale. Some other examples could be mentioned by Senthil, the visual product search. So sometimes it's much easier to find items when you have an image. And this is something that we have seen a lot with millennials. They prefer the images. They see something somewhere else, mostly in social media, or somewhere else has a specific garment, if we're still talking about the fashion industry, for example, and they want to buy that similar product. Demand forecasting is also one that is being implemented, or is a specific use case on the retail where you want to be a little bit more prepared. Of course, the pandemic is an exceptional event that is nothing that it had been lived before, but some other cases that demand forecasting really give them to the companies of business a good heads up of what do they need to prepare for. Some other ones, it could be the fraudulent transaction detection, for example, when things are moving online at that rapid pace, also is good to keep an eye on it. So those one kind of some of the cases that we have been working with different customers that are related to this vertical.
Great examples. Sanjiv, I would love to get your perspective from brick and mortar as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. At Kroger, we are using AI to simplify and streamline customer experience in meaningful ways. Let me actually give you 3 examples. People waste 130 billion pounds of food per year. Kroger believes it should be 0. Many of you may be aware of Kroger Zero Hunger, Zero Waste initiative. Last year, we created Chefbot to reimagine the cooking experience by using AI technology to make the most out of what's already in customers' fridge or pantry. Chefbot is an AI-powered smart recipe bot which uses visual AI to see nearly 2,000 ingredients and unlock almost 20,000 recipes. It's helping families make the most out of ingredients they already own and reduce the food waste. This is how Chefbot works. You simply take the picture of what you have in pantry or fridge, tweet to Kroger Chefbot, and Chefbot comes back with personalized recipe recommendations. Example number 2, Kroger is our smart card powered by Capper. It is an intelligent card with built-in scale and camera to provide an easier shopping experience with less contact and faster checkout. With Kroger Card, our customer can scan and bag right in the cart as they shop, see the running order total, then pay from the cart and simply exit the store. My local Kroger store here in Cincinnati offers Kroger, and it has become an integral part of my shopping experience. Final example is our self-checkout process that leverages AI machine learning. This system uses AI computer vision technology from Everseen to detect and reduce customer errors for faster self-checkout. The visual AI platform watches video in real time to recognize regular processes and intelligently step in whenever something is amiss. The technology flags error occasionally experienced at self-checkout and enable customer to self-correct, or if they are unable to rectify the problem, an associate is summoned to help. By leveraging visual AI and machine learning technology, we are not only able to remove friction for the customer, but also remove controllable costs from the business and redirect those resources to improving the customer experience even more.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you're applying things in a variety of ways to enhance the customer's experience. Cal, anything to add from the data science perspective? I know this is this is something that's big.
So, what I find really fascinating, especially the nature of the projects that we get brought into work on, is for all the consumer-facing use cases. For example, when you talk about the very visible things like chatbots and recommender systems, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's actually a lot of machine learning and AI use cases behind the scenes that maybe aren't as polished, but help human operators do what they do just a little bit better. So one of the examples that I had talked about was in the example of Walmart, where they have those cameras monitoring the checkout lines, right? That feedback isn't going directly back to the consumer. It's actually going back to a customer service representative. And we've seen similar use cases in contact centers or call centers, being able to scan for themes and pick up on things over time and provide alerts to a human operator that can go then look and investigate a problem. So I found it really fascinating that even with Amazon, the majority of their AI-driven use cases are actually these behind the scenes. And I think it's very telling of what the future might look like from a workforce perspective. And that definitely has a significant impact on the customer experience, even though it's not directly consumer facing.
That's a great perspective. Thank you for sharing. And I think that's a great segue into our next question. We've been talking a lot about how we're building things, but what are the consumers' reactions to personalization, contactless experiences, online shopping, and all the myriad of other examples, and how they interact with brands today? Is it all good, or are there challenges? And I think we'll start with Sanjiv for this one, since grocery is a very traditional field. How are your consumers responding to those changes?
Yeah, and I have a really simple and straightforward answer to this. So as we all know, and Senthil mentioned this, thanks to pandemic, all these changes, they have now become core capability of what we call seamless or omni-channel customer experience. From Kroger perspective, we challenge ourselves, are these capability helping or hindering our customers to get that job done simpler, faster, and better than before, right? So internally, we use this notion of 10x. Are we really driving that meaningful impact and outcome for our customers, right? So at the end of the day, it's a really simple test. I mean, are we making our customers' lives simpler, easier, faster, or not?
Makes perfect sense to me. Senthil, are you seeing the same at eBay?
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. It's mostly positive in all cases. Of course, there are challenges too, right? With every new thing that comes, and challenges are coming. The reactions in particular to the younger crowd, the younger population, is something that I want to highlight here, especially Gen Zs and stuff, right? I think the newer population coming online, it's more about expressiveness. It's about they want to tie themselves with something more noble, right? It's about the cause that they are working towards. And that is something that we need to do different changes, right? They don't want to, in fact, the used is becoming again a popular category. We call it pre-loved in some cases, right? Basically, high-end products and things like that, they do not want to spend that money. They want to reuse it as much as possible, which is a different mentality which we thought would never come up. And they also want to have a very cleaner future. And all this is sort of reflecting in the way they are shopping, they're buying the products and things like that. And I think, again, this is again something that we have learned in the recent years, that I would say that I want to highlight. And these are also challenges that we need to work through, because if we have this usual mindset of how consumers come and buy, that may not help an organization in the long run. I think we should think about how these new people are coming in and how they are thinking about the future, thinking about Earth, thinking about the environment, and how their shopping patterns are changing. Even if they have money, they do not want to just spend it because of the reason they have the money, right? Which is very different from how we used to shop. I mean, it was about, okay, you had the money in your wallet, you buy it. But now they are thinking about a lot of other things in addition to just buying things, right? In fact, they are tying themselves to certain brands just because that brand has a cost to it, not just because the brand brings them comfort. I mean, these are all the things that which I have never seen in the past. I think that's what I would also say, that customer reaction still now has also learned a lot, especially during the pandemic, when we understood a lot of these patterns that are evolving, and I think we need to adjust it. And that will be a big challenge too.
Definitely. The cross-generational kind of programming is very interesting to see. Cal, have you noticed any of this with the way that you're building products?
So it's really interesting. I've been following the trends in consumer trust, and trust is a really big and important word here. I think there's a lot of skepticism pre-pandemic that kind of forced the needle on people's perceptions, but that the question about trust still exists. In fact, recent survey by Capgemini, they have a really interesting, their Capgemini Research Institute does a really interesting poll on consumer attitudes towards trust in artificial intelligence. And what they found was a majority of individuals would actually stop doing business, to your point, Senthil, with an organization where they perceived that they couldn't trust how they were handling their data. They couldn't trust how an algorithm was steering their decisions. So, to bring this down to a nutshell, how are consumers reacting to it? Well, when it works really well, it improves their experience. They want to do more business. They tend to do more business and they buy more. But when you encounter a chatbot that doesn't quite understand you, there's not that level of understanding that you might have with a human operator. And so it introduces this jarring, frustrating experience, and that has a significant negative impact. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about risks and trust in just a bit, but it's very interesting to see that dichotomy in terms of when it works, it's 10x. When it doesn't work, it's also 10x, but worse.
Yes.
One bad experience, just to add on to that point, is I mean, these days, like, the patience level has also gone, that the attention span is so low for the new people. And so one bad experience is enough. I think you lose the customer for life. So that's another thing that puts a lot of pressure on organizations, that not only the first impression, like every impression has to be good in terms of you delivering the experience, right? Because they have so many options. In fact, it's overwhelming, right? It's just not like 10 years back, there were only like few platforms where we can do shopping, or few platforms we can do gaming. I mean, it has all changed, I think. So every interaction matters these days.
Yeah, and positive experience, people take it for granted. Negative experience, they will go out on social media, they'll go to the ratings review site, and it just amplifies, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I was going to highlight that from Carl's mentioning of how the balance is between positive and negative, and especially with the chatbots. The chatbots is something that it is so popular, or everyone wants that, even though that the level of frustration with chatbots is really high in many organizations that had implemented early chatbots frameworks, but still they want to implement it just to cope with demand. And something that we usually mention to our organization and customers that want to implement chatbots is, are you really sure that you want to implement them? Because the gain might not be as much as you want, but the frustration that your shopper's gonna get if the chatbot is not implemented in the right way, it will be more dangerous to your brand. So it is like a fine line. Sometimes technology, you need to evaluate what will be the benefits towards the risks, and then make those decisions. I think it was Cal that mentioned earlier, sometimes when AI is applied, it doesn't have to be the front end. It doesn't have to be the things that you are interactive day to day. It's actually used to automate processes within the operation part of the business, so people or individuals can dedicate their time to some other tasks that are better to be a human interaction. So it is very interesting, this topic. I love it to talk about the frustration of chatbots and how technology has to be taken in with a grain of salt. Not everything is positive. You always need to analyze the risks into your
And I would just add one point to that. Typically from, as you map out the end-to-end consumer or customer journey and look at the most frustrating, the touch points, right? What are those areas which is actually causing the biggest, the pain points, friction. And when you actually look at, let's take a specific example, returns, exchange, refund. That's one of the most frustrating experience, right? And now we finally actually seeing the use of AI, right? Like a lot of the retailers, for example, you go and you have a routine sort of the a return or exchange inquiry, it's all automated, right? So again, it all depends on the context, right? So are you actually driving, the positive experiences, which already is so negative, right? In terms of the frustration, the effort that you have to sort of go through, and being able to apply the technology to really even make that experience somewhat better, reaps a huge dividend along the way.
And sometimes the answer is equipping a human to make that experience even better.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. And Liliana, I'm not sure if you experience this working with your clients, but oftentimes we get approached and we're asked the question, okay, we were tasked to build something with AI. I don't know what we were going to build, but we're going to build AI. We need AI. Customers are expecting AI. And that is the worst possible motivation to invest in this kind of technology. And trying to impact. What's the outcome there?
Definitely. That is very common. They say, let's say it has been becoming better, but let's say 2 years ago, when I started Peltarion, I remember that people were coming to customers, we need to buy AI. Okay, wait a second. You don't buy AI. Let me explain how AI works. But I think the maturity out there is becoming much is better understood now, AI, and it's getting better. It's not up to the level, but it is going towards the right direction. But yet, sometimes it's nice to stop, to take the time to educate and to say, okay, how the technology is really going to help you. It is not that it's going to do magic. Sometimes, and I have no problem whatsoever to explain to the company, maybe what you need is not AI, it's just digitalization, or maybe just organizing your internal processes, or something that you can pinpoint and say, here might be and big 10x change if you will do the things in a different way. Also, when you are doing AI, you need to think in a different way. And just going through the process of how they wanted to use AI, it can discover things that they didn't know about their business, that just making those changes without going towards the whole end of the AI, it will improve them. So definitely we get this kind of, I want to buy AI.
I think to follow up, right, that's the suggestion that I would give to folks who are starting into this digitalized world, right? I think they like to make generic statements. Oh, I want to make AI power everything in my company. I like just what the earlier conversation was going in, right? People just make generic statements. And the suggestion I give is to come with a golden path, right? Like just first focus on what's your most critical mass, or what's the path where most of your customer journey is spent in, or most of where your revenue comes from, and then focus on that, and then go with what Liliana was saying, that just do that one. It's not like it's not like buying AI or you're putting AI into everything that you do, and that doesn't even make sense. In fact, that can backfire in some cases. Just start with the minimum thing, that's the critical mass, and then that's when you get feedback, and then you start evolving. Rather than just doing things, because it's a lot of peer pressure also sometimes leadership faces, where they just want to go and, I want to buy this, I want to do that, but that doesn't help you at all at the end of the day.
Yeah, just to wrap up maybe this topic, we need to be also fair. And I have to say that at the same way as people or some organization might come with different ideas of doing AI, although they think they are ready to do AI or want to implement it, there are some other organizations that they think they don't have enough data, that they don't have the use cases, or they are far away to be able to implement AI. But when we sit and start talking to the domain expert, the people that are working closely with the data, and you make the right questions. So when you extract out the complexity of AI and just talk about the use case and talk about what is important for the business, what are the specific roles, what is the data they are working, they have all the ingredients. They already have done a lot. They have data that it could be used for AI. And sometimes they are surprised that the step to AI is not that big, it's not that challenging, or that is not a big investment that they thought, just because they didn't know how really the technology works. So it could be in both ways. In a little bit too naive, having the expectations very high or what AI can do, and also some other ones try not daring to take that step, thinking that it's too complex to make that step, when there is organizations that we help, or they are famous, there are platforms that helps, there are a lot of help in getting into that stage. So we have to have, I wanted just to highlight that it works in both ways.
No, I agree. Actually, one of my favorite quotes is AI only becomes useful when it becomes boring.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Yes.
Wow, love that. That's a great quote. And so, Cal actually mentioned it a little bit, but I would love to kind of shift the conversation to talk about risk. What are the potential risks that organizations should be mindful of when deploying consumer-facing AI at scale? And of course, privacy concerns are a big one. So what else is out there? Cal, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Part of what's led to the explosion of all that we can do now with AI technology in the past couple of years is these building block algorithms. But how are models and algorithms designed? They're designed based off of data. And a lot of the advances over the last couple of years have had to do with specific types of models called black box models. These are models that are very complex. They have complex representations. I think a lot of people are familiar with regression, where you have, a slope or a parameter, or you can say this correlates with this by this factor, right? Sales prices correlates with X demand or inventory. These models are so complex, they have not hundreds, not thousands, sometimes millions or even billions of these factors. And what that means is no matter how hard we try, we can't actually understand why the model arrived at what it arrived at. Why did it predict that this is the recommendation? Why did it predict this language or this categorization? They're really powerful at performing at the specific task, but they're very hard to audit. And this gets even more complex when we talk about use cases with image, audio, and natural language, where the data isn't represented in a traditional numeric format. And so what this has caused in industry is a lot of unintended consequences. Things like self-driving cars, not even recognizing a truck on the side, to situations in facial recognition, where it's widely known now that specifically African-American females have worse recognition rates in facial recognition platforms relative to other genders or ethnicities. So when you think about this, at best, we're talking about a subpar experience for some part of the population dealing with this technology. And at worst, there are actually some pretty negative consequences in terms of inequity and fairness. Apple launched their new credit card product, and it would, same family, same household, the wife would get a lower credit limit than the man. And it's not because somebody sexist programmed that algorithm. It's because it's taking these complex data and it's these complex models that are black box, and it's very hard to actually audit and understand. So double-edged sword, we have these building blocks, but now we have to start thinking about how do we monitor these risks? How do we make them consumer friendly, consumer safe? How do we build trust and auditability into these things? And one simple step is asking, what are the use cases that are internal facing, employee enabling, human enabling, that allows a human to deal with some of these recommendations with discretion instead of putting it directly to the customer?
Excellent points all around. Thanks, Cal. Liliana, let's hear your perspective from the applied AI side.
No, definitely. That is a very interesting point and something that you really need to, as an organization, look at. There is this is kind of like as Cal said, double sword. You have done a process in certain way, done by humans, right? And if a human makes a decision, you really don't sometimes don't question that decision. Okay, the agent did make a decision of something alone, or like the example that Cal just mentioned. But when you put an AI, the standards and the levels or accuracy, they are way higher than what you are required when humans are performing the same task. And now we are forgetting that these models are being built by the data that is being produced by the same humans that are making those decisions.
Definitely. Thanks, Liliana. Senthil, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think just to add on, as Liliana said, right? I mean, the problem with data is not, it's because the data came from the past, and the past data were from humans, right? So the bias was built by humans, and AI have much higher standards, right? And humans react to just human psychology. If a human makes a mistake, it's less punishing than when AI make a mistake, then we make a lot of noise around it. But ultimately, humans are more biased if you take in all practical sense, and their decisions are even more bad. I think there was a recent book by Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman. I think it's called Noise, in which they do a lot of research on this exact point, and they say that why AI is always held at higher standards, and why machines are definitely better than humans in making a lot of decisions, including court decisions by judges. Anyway, coming back to this point on customer, like the risks, right? In terms of privacy, the thing that I am facing, or I see customers questioning, is also about data sharing itself. This is about how much of the information that I want to give away to the organization, even if they are interacting with an organization or with a product. They don't want that organization to know a lot about them, right? They don't want them to know about what they are searching, for example, in an e-commerce space, in terms of something that's very private to them, or their health related conditions that they are doing and things like that. I think that's the balance we are also trying to see on how we can do it. So privacy is something we also take it very seriously at heart. We have to be privacy preserving, right? And we have to apply various techniques that we are not able to pinpoint a pattern to an individual, rather to a group. Like the concept of differential privacy comes into place over there, where we will neither identify you as an individual, either it's a Cal, Sanjiv, or Liliana. It will be like, okay, this particular group of people, so that so that's another thing that we are at least exploring, that we should never tie, because they interact a lot online, and we can reduce a lot of information about them, but customers don't appreciate that when you try to do that and start serving them in that model, right? I mean, it helps in certain categories, like showing them recommendations, but there are so many things that we want to do that. And at eBay, what we do is, in certain cases, when they are uploading an image and all, we deploy models in the device itself, which means it never leaves your device. So we are like, you do a search, it happens within the device. And so once they decide, okay, it makes sense, then only they push the button which uploads it to our service. So we don't even know what they are interacting with at some point in time. So these are the things that, I mean, it's not like one side is the right solution. I think we have to be very cognizant about this thing. We have to be very thoughtful when we are designing our product, and we should always put privacy as a hat that we need to go in.
Excellent points. Sanjiv, anything to add?
Yeah, one quick comment. From our perspective, it's really, can you understand and explain how AI works, right? Because if you don't can do that, it's almost basically a worst case scenario where I think now you're going to have basically a fine line between, consumer trust and then actually abusing that trust. Either your own personal benefit organization in terms of like monetizing, selling that data in terms of all these additional data that you got in your own personal gain, right? So from my perspective, it's really a balancing act. And can you actually really understand and explain how AI is working? How are we using data? In what context? And being total transparent with the consumer. And I know there are all these new sort of the privacy regulation, CCPA being one, where you have to be explicit, right? Like, what is that data share? Who else are you actually sharing that data, and are you actually monetizing that data?
Something that I wanted to just share or add as a closing thought on this. 2 or 3 years ago, the O'Reilly AI State of Industry, they poll every year, right? Where are organizations at in terms of piloting, deploying models in production? And just 2 or 3 years ago, a majority of organizations were just starting to pilot. Well, guess what? Those organizations that were piloting, they're now deploying. And they now have models that are ongoing and continuous in production and now being monitored and maintained over time. This is the field of ML ops, as you may have heard of it. And a big part of this is, as we're now deploying these models in production and starting to see some of these unintended consequences beyond just data privacy and what data goes where and how are you using it, but some of these potential fairness impacts or bias impacts. I think a critical part of this that organizations can take a step towards is thinking about how do you do risk management in an ongoing basis in context of these models. This conversation, I hope it doesn't scare anybody away, but I hope it opens your eyes into the need to put risk management in place like anything else you do in your organization, right? How do you monitor this over time? How do you get alerted and know something potentially unwanted might happen before it happens and intervene to do something about it?
Excellent points. And I think that is a great way to lead into our last question. We've talked a lot about, how AI and customer experience has changed so rapidly over the last couple of years, as well as things that are important about building trust and managing risk. So what do you expect to happen in to the consumer experience over the next 5 to 10 years? And being mindful of time, we'll give everyone about 2 minutes to answer this one. Let's kick it off with Liliana.
I will start with maybe 10 years is too far away when we are talking about AI, taking into account that this is a field that is exploding and is being a lot of rapidly changes in the past couple of years. So I will say that for the next 5 years, I will see that everyone, and at least in the retail, it will be using AI in any type of form or shape. And the ones that not doing AI today, I know they're going to start looking and they're going to start feeling that they are being left behind. They are maybe not getting the market share, or maybe they are using to competitors that are daring to use AI. I will say that a lot of these challenges that we see today, for example, the one that we just discussing about privacy, are going to be overcome. For example, the federated learning, if you have heard from that before, is something that you allow to build models, to train models when the data is located in different parts. So you don't have to bring it together. So once again, I will see the next 5 years an explosion of usability of AI in the retail space, where everyone is going to be using in any kind of form, and the risks are going to be overcome maybe by technological advancements or any other more traditional ways, or they're going to be overcome. So that will be kind of like I will see in the close future.
Love that. A very hopeful future. Sanjiv, what do you think?
From my perspective, AI will become the new UI, UI being a user interface. From the moment you get on retailer app or website, an AI bot or assistant will come in motion and take care of your routine transaction, such as weekly grocery shopping. AI will also help customer navigate interconnected set of services from food inspiration, meal planning, recipes, grocery pickup or delivery, meal preparation, eating indoor or outdoor, and cleaning in a single integrated experience. This is the notion of ecosystem, which will move e-commerce from transaction-based to relationship-based. Also, AI technology will make it easier for customer to eat healthy on a budget. Customers will be able to set up monthly or per meal budget, and any potential health issues or concerns they have either for themselves or family member. AI will now do the hard work of finding the best product and offers, scouring a retailer website as well as the internet for like coupons, promotions that meet the budget constraints, and submit cart for customers' final confirmation and checkout. The entire experience from finding product, building the cart, order checkout, and final delivery, whether that's by autonomous vehicle, would be, from my perspective, would be automated. And really, the human sort of the touch in this entire experience is when you're sort of moving away from a routine, right? So anything that is routine is taken care by AI and automation, and anything that is either inspiration, creativity, innovation, working with your family, friends, trying to figure out a unique event or what have you. That's where the human sort of the touch would come in picture. But for all practical sort of routine transaction, I think AI and automation should be able to take care of that.
Wow, that's exciting. And Cal, what do you think?
So the phrase AI plus humans stands out to me or comes to mind. Just to touch on what's been said already, I think that there's going to be a greater degree of accountability. And to Liliana's point, these issues around trusted AI are going to be addressed, and there's going to be greater visibility into why models are doing what they're doing. And that's going to increase our ability to trust them, deploy them, put them into production. And to Sanjiv's point, like the flip side of the AI being the new UI, I really see that in terms of the engineering, the emphasis not being on automation, but augmenting human capabilities, right? How do we not design systems to overstep or overpass humans, but how do we design them to help humans do the things that we want to do or find joy in?
Wow, these are some inspirational aspirations for the future. I love it. And Senthil, let's wrap it up.
Sure. I think to everyone has said good points about it, right? To me, just to add on what to everyone said is we are also noticing customer experiences demanding three things in the future. I think will happen is one is privacy preserving. You already talked about it, but they also expect experiences to be always available and also instantly responsive. So to me, these three attributes, right? Privacy preserving, always available, instantly responsive. This will become like a default notion. Like in 20, 30 years, if an experience is not doing this, it means it's not an experience at all, because the attention span is so low. We expect everything to work every time, all the time, right? So I think that would be the thing that I would say, and it has to be privacy preserving too. So it's a challenging thing. I think let's see how we all do it.
Wow, thank you. Today we've covered some really interesting perspectives all about what AI is doing right now in customer experience, how we've had to adapt to the pandemic and everything there, as well as the future of what AI could look like and the potential there for creating that trust for customers and creating an incredible experience for future consumers. So thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I know this virtual audience is going wild with virtual applause. We really appreciate you all. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. For the audience, it's time for you to make your way to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and take some time to check out our amazing exhibits. Thanks so much, and thanks again to our amazing panelists, and we'll see you around.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye.